everyone. Thank you for gathering today for our wedding. However, it seems that someone has mistakenly slipped in here.
The room started buzzing with murmurs. I had a really bad feeling about this.
Hey, you over there! Those of you who are ugly, low-educated idiots don't belong here. So please leave. You're an eyesore.
She turned towards us, grinning as she spoke into the microphone. My sister, making such an outrageous remark at her own wedding, seemed oblivious to the frozen atmosphere in the room. Then, my husband stood up, walked over to the head table, grabbed the microphone from my sister, and started speaking.
Congratulations on your wedding. I'd like to say a few words of congratulations to you both.
What is he going to say? What my husband said next was completely unexpected.
As of today, Harris Transport will be ending its business relationship with Thompson Industries.
What?
My sister and her husband trembled at my husband's words. My name is Nancy. I'm 30 years old. I used to live at home with my mother and my older sister, Amy, who is 2 years older than me. I married my husband, Jason, 5 years ago, and we're still a very close and happy couple. He's my senior by 7 years and was my boss at work. Despite his calm demeanor, he's serious about his job and has always been sincere and kind to me. I trusted Jason deeply and happily accepted his proposal. It may seem like I'm living a happy life now, but I have a tumultuous past. When I was 16, my parents divorced due to my father's affair. After that, my mother raised us on her own, but it was clearly too much for her. During my high school years, my mother collapsed and has been in poor health ever since. Even though she was struggling, my mother worked tirelessly to support my sister, who was in college, and me, a high school student. But it was clear to me that she was pushing herself too hard. I couldn't shake the fear that we might lose her. With that fear in mind, I decided to give up on going to college and chose to get a job right after graduating from high school. I had always been diligent in my studies, and I don't think I was lacking in intelligence. It would be a lie to say that I didn't want to go to college. But I wanted to ease my mother's burden, even just a little. While it might be difficult for me to support the entire family on my own, I could save on college expenses and contribute financially by working. Having made up my mind, I told my mother that I would start working after graduation.
Don't worry about me. Just go to college. Your sister is attending, so you must want to go too, right?
No, it's fine. Of course, college seems fun, but I'd rather not see you push yourself too hard.
But, Nancy, you've worked so hard at your studies. And because of me.
It's not because of you. It's what I want to do. Please, Mom, don't push yourself anymore. My mother bit her lip at my words and, with tears in her eyes, said,
Thank you. I'm sorry.
After graduating high school, I threw myself into job hunting. As a high school graduate, finding a job was incredibly difficult to the point where it made me dizzy. However, one transportation company recognized my potential. That's where I still work today, Harris Transport. I still remember what the CEO said during the final interview.
The most important things in our company are motivation and character. I have high hopes for you.
Meanwhile, my sister Amy, having discovered the joys of campus life, started to change little by little.
I'm not coming home again tonight. Mom, I won't need dinner tonight.
And so, she began staying out until the early hours of the morning. One day, while I was relaxing at home because it was my day off, my sister found me and, with a scowl hidden between her brows, spat at me.
Hey! Why aren't you at work today? Nancy, get out of the house.
What? It's my day off today, but why?
My boyfriend is coming over today. He's highly educated, and if he finds out I have a low-educated sister like you, he'll hate me.
What? I was so shocked that I forgot to be angry. The cost of college tuition is quite high. My mother and I work hard just to afford it, yet my sister spends all her time playing around. And now, she's looking down on me for being a high school graduate? My anger began to boil over. But there was no point in arguing with her. All right. I'll leave today. I suppressed my anger, telling myself that it was my own decision not to go to college and to work instead, and I left the house. After that, my sister continued to date only highly successful men, handsome, well-educated, or wealthy. She had turned into someone obsessed with status, prestige, and academic backgrounds. My sister, who was beautiful, tall, and had a very pretty face with a good public image, must have been quite popular in college. Every time she got a new boyfriend, she would brag to me and started calling me a lowly idiot and a stupid woman. But despite all of this, I managed to keep going because I had a clear goal, to live without relying completely on my mother. Besides, I was fortunate to be surrounded by good people at work. At first, everyone seemed to be afraid of me. Since I worked in a transportation company, most of the employees were men. The few female employees were mostly part-time housewives, and they seemed to avoid me, a young high school graduate working as a driver. However, as I continued working, people around me gradually started talking to me normally. I hadn't done anything differently, so I wondered why. One day, a staff member approached me.
To be honest, at first, I thought you were some kind of scary girl who'd done something really bad, so I was wary of you.
Scary? No way. I quickly shook my head in denial, and they chuckled softly.
I know! But as we worked together, I realized how hardworking you are and that you're a serious and good person. I'm sure everyone else feels the same way. You've really been doing a great job.
That person who said those words turned out to be my current husband. It made me realize that he had been watching over me all along. After that, we began dating, which eventually led to our marriage. By then, my sister had graduated from college and moved out, and I left home when I married my husband. Sometime after that, my mother, having completed the long journey of raising us, seemed to collapse in relief and passed away suddenly. It was a heart attack. Later, my sister, as the eldest, became the head of the funeral, which was the first time I'd seen her in about 5 years.
It's been a while, Nancy.
Yes, it has, Amy.
Is that Nancy's husband?
She said this while looking my husband up and down, as if evaluating him. It was incredibly rude, especially considering they had just met.
Nice to meet you, Amy. I'm Nancy's husband, Jason. My deepest condolences for your loss.
He seems like a boring man.
What? How could you say such a thing? That's so rude.
Shut up! You suddenly get married, and to someone 7 years older? He's just an old man.
He's a wonderful person.
Oh, really? What does he do for work?
The fact that she immediately asked about his job after I called him wonderful was so typical of my sister. He works in the same transportation company as I do. But is that really important on a day like this?
Transportation? How pathetic. An old man in transportation, probably earning a low salary. I bet you both have to work just to make ends meet. That's so embarrassing.
I chose to keep working. Don't speak about things you don't know. As I got angry at my sister, my husband placed a hand on my shoulder.
Nancy, calm down. Today is the day to say goodbye to your mother. She would be sad to see her daughters arguing on a day like this.
His words brought me back to my senses. I decided to ignore my sister's muttered insults and spent the final moments with my mother in peace. My sister seemed furious at being ignored, but that didn't matter at all that day. After the funeral, while sorting through my mother's belongings, I was overwhelmed with sadness, recalling her lively spirit and kind words, and I couldn't stop the tears from falling. During those times, my husband was always there, offering me comfort and support. 2 years after my mother's sudden death.
Nancy, there's a wedding invitation for you.
What? I looked at the envelope and saw it was addressed from Amy. It was an invitation to my sister's wedding. Since my mother's funeral, my sister and I had grown distant, and we hadn't been in contact at all, so I was surprised to learn she was even getting married. Hey, Jason, my sister sent me a wedding invitation. To be honest, I feel hesitant about going to the ceremony.
Maybe your sister wants to reconcile with you. You aren't always at odds with each other, right?
We used to get along well.
Maybe now that you're both adults, there are things you need to talk about. I'll come with you, of course. It's a good opportunity. Let's go together, okay?
With his encouragement, I marked attending on the RSVP and sent it back the next day. The day of the wedding. Did you know that your sister's husband is the president of Thompson Industries? That's amazing.
Really? No wonder the wedding is so grand. Looks like there are a lot of people here too.
As we entered the chapel, chatting with each other, we waited for the bride to make her entrance. After a while, the bride and groom appeared. My sister, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, was dressed in a pure white wedding gown and looked absolutely beautiful. Seeing her so happy brought tears to my eyes. Congratulations, I whispered in my heart. After the ceremony, my husband and I stepped outside to head to the reception hall. There, we saw my sister and her husband, who had just exited moments before. Although it felt a bit awkward after not seeing her for so long, I decided to approach them. Amy, congratulations. You looked absolutely stunning today. My sister, however, responded with a dismissive tone.
Oh, you actually came.
Her husband, John, who was standing next to her, looked me and my husband up and down.
So, this is your sister?
Yeah, remember I told you? I have this worthless, high school dropout sister.
Oh, so this is her? Haha, you two don't look alike at all, and she seems so ordinary.
He chuckled, giving me a cold, condescending look.
Right? And look at her husband, just an ordinary guy. I guess they were leftovers for each other.
Enough. You were awful at the funeral too, but this is going too far. Say what you want about me, but leave my husband out of it. I was furious, nearly ready to lash out at her.
Oh my! Scary! You're such an eyesore, you high school dropout. Why don't you just leave already?
She shouted angrily at me. If I'm such an eyesore, why did you invite me to your wedding?
Because my husband is a CEO. I wanted to rub it in your face. I'm prettier, and my husband is high status. Look at this grand wedding with all these people. But what about you? A pathetic husband and a plain wife. It must be humiliating, right? I just wanted to see your envious face.
I'm surprised your husband even came along.
How can you say such cruel things?
Well, we need to go change for the next part of the ceremony. See you later, high school dropout.
With that, my sister and her husband walked away. I could feel the anger boiling up inside me. I had worked so hard for my mother, for my sister. Even though my relationship with my sister had been strained, I always held on to the hope that we could reconcile one day. But to be mocked, not just me, but also my work and my husband. I can never forgive her. As I stood there, my clenched fists trembling with anger, I felt a gentle hand rest softly on my shoulder. Jason.
It's okay. Nancy, you're a wonderful person. Education doesn't define you. If your sister can't see that, then she's the one who's truly blind.
But she insulted you and your work. I can't forgive her for that.
You're right. But don't worry. Leave it to me.
Though my husband smiled reassuringly, I could see the anger in his eyes, showing that he was just as upset as I was. Afterward, we headed to the reception hall. A while later, my sister and her husband appeared, having changed outfits. Noticing I was still seated, my sister frowned. Ignoring her, I remained seated with a confident posture. The reception began, and my sister started her speech. But then she said something outrageous.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on our special day. However, it seems that some people have mistakenly found their way into this event.
The room filled with murmurs. I had a terrible feeling about what was coming.
I'm referring to those people sitting over there. Low-educated, ugly fools who don't belong here. Please leave!
My sister said this into the microphone, directing her words at us. Clearly, she was furious with me, to the point that she would say something like this at her own wedding. It was baffling that someone so brazenly rude could function in society at all. She seemed oblivious to the stunned silence that fell over the room. Overwhelmed with anger, I glared at her.
Hey, are you listening? Hurry up and leave.
Suddenly, my husband stood up from his seat and walked toward the front of the room.
What are you doing?
Hey, stay away. Get out of here, idiot.
Startled by my husband's unexpected actions, my sister and her husband tried to brush him off. However, my husband paid them no mind, walked up to them, took the microphone, and began speaking to the guests.
First of all, congratulations to the newlyweds. I'd like to say just a few words to both of you.
What? What do you want, old man?
As of today, my company will be terminating our contract with your husband's company.
What?
My sister's voice shot up in surprise. From the table where John's family was seated, an older man suddenly stood up.
Could it be? You're the president of Harris Transport, aren't you?
The man who spoke was John's father. John had taken over Thompson Industries from his father 2 years ago. My sister, not understanding what was happening, looked completely bewildered.
It's been a while, Mr. Thompson. Yes, I am the president of Harris Transport, And the woman sitting over there is my wife, Nancy, the executive director.
As my husband said this, the guests on John's side started whispering among themselves. They were likely employees of Thompson Industries.
What? This must be a joke.
What's going on, John? What does he mean? That old man is the president? Nancy is the executive director?
This is unbelievable.
As you all heard earlier, the bride and groom called my wife and me uneducated fools and said we were an eyesore. So, as per their wishes, I will be terminating our company's contract with Amy's husband's company and promise to cease all future dealings.
As my husband calmly delivered the news, the color drained from John's father's face. A few seconds later, his face turned bright red as if he were boiling over with anger, and he shouted toward the front.
Hey! Apologize to these people immediately.
Oh, come on. What's the matter? These people just run a transport company. Why are you so shocked?
My sister responded with a half smile, completely out of sync with her father-in-law's panicked demeanor. But John, who was standing next to her, was trembling uncontrollably.
John, what's wrong with you?
Then John's father, his voice shaking, shouted again.
Harris Transport handles all our company shipments as our exclusive carrier.
What?
Yes, the transport company where I had been working was led by my husband, Jason. Harris Transport is a major corporation in the region, with an annual revenue of $1 billion. Since my husband hired me, I had worked tirelessly every day. I actively relayed the voices of the workers to the management, pushing for reforms. Thanks to my efforts and the recognition from my colleagues, who recommended me, I was promoted to executive director last year.
If they terminate our contract, no products will reach our customers starting tomorrow. That would severely damage our company's reputation. The losses would be unimaginable.
My sister was left in shock.
What?
John, on the other hand, went pale and held his head in his hands.
I can't believe it. They're the president and executive director of Harris Transport. We're finished. Our company is done for.
Indeed, if products suddenly stop being delivered, you'll lose trust not only with your business partners, but with your customers as well.
Having said that, my husband calmly returned to our table as if nothing had happened.
What? I didn't know. What should I do?
You idiot! How could you be so disrespectful to such an important client? This is what happens when you don't take your responsibilities seriously. Dad, please, do something!
John's pitiful voice as he pleaded with his father made him sound like a small child. John's father stormed up to the stage, grabbed John by the collar, and dragged him over to where my husband and I were sitting. He forced John to bow low, pressing his head to the floor in a deep apology.
I deeply apologize. I promise this will never happen again. Please, please forgive us just this once.
John's father joined him in bowing, begging for our forgiveness. Panicking, John followed suit, bowing his pale face low as he pleaded.
I'm terribly sorry. Please, forgive us.
My husband looked at me, his expression asking, "What should we do?" There's no way we can forgive you. The contract will be terminated effective immediately. Please check with your company for how to proceed starting tomorrow. Gasps and cries filled the room from John's guests. John's father was struck speechless, unable to say a word. I had believed that my sister wanted to reconcile with me. I was genuinely happy for her when I heard she was marrying the president of Thompson Industries, thinking she had found a great partner. But the president of Thompson Industries didn't even recognize the face of his business partners. And my sister had no intention of making amends. She just wanted to humiliate me. My hopes were completely betrayed. With the groom and John's father rushing out of the reception hall to deal with the fallout, the employees of Thompson Industries were left sweating bullets, their faces ashen. The wedding was, of course, cancelled. My sister, who had ruined her special day with her own words, was left paralyzed, unable to move. Amy, we're leaving. Do your best, but don't ever show your face to us again.
Please. Forgive me. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
It was far too late for apologies. They meant nothing. My husband and I left the venue. Afterward, John was stripped of his position as president by his father and lost all his status and wealth. Blaming my sister for what had happened, he started fighting with her constantly, and the two eventually divorced. As for us, I recently found out that I'm pregnant. My husband's family was overjoyed at the news. After all the pain and heartache, I'm determined to live a happy life with our baby, my husband, and our loving in-laws. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.